Bernard Bediako Bedu, he's a lawyer and also MP for the Akufo constituency, also a member of the government communications team. Yes, Honorable, before we get to the meat of the substance of the judgment, how does government feel about this talk about the fact that what has happened to Wontumi is a clear case of punishing him for some provocative, as some have described it, unsavory, and some unpleasant words that he held at the first family and now the vice president. And so he's only been punished for his behavior, not necessarily, that they are contaminating and the decision of the executive to take him to court, a teenager to take him to court and all of that is only a ruse. I'm sure you've heard that kind of commentary as well. How do you respond to that even before you get to the judgment and help us appreciate what exactly happened in court?
Yeah, thank you, my brother.
And that's, of course, the politics side of things.
Thank you so much. Good morning to yourself and your team, as well as my big brother, Paul. Let me also say good morning to our viewers and listeners as well.
Right.
You see, first and foremost, it is not true that this government has any interest whatsoever in taking away the liberties of Chairman Wontumi for any reason. You see, so let me first say this. Look, it is not true that this thing that is all over the place, that there was a phone call and then all that. No,
it's not true.
My checks indicate that there is nothing like that.
There was no attempt to intervene for Chairman Wontumi?
Well, they've mentioned names, and the claim is that they put a call through to His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, and the claim is that President Mahama then forwarded a certain video to. I don't know whether, I'm sure that's what my brother is talking about.
Because the names that came up, and again, reportedly and allegedly, was Kennedy Agyapong and one.
Have you found out from them if it's true? The information I'm getting is that it's not true. So let's put that aside. Look, we are a country, and we always drum home this rule of law. Just recently, a few weeks ago, our sister Sedina Tamaklo, who was charged with some offenses of financial impropriety, in the course of the trial, left the shores of this country and was out there and never came back because of the laws of the Republic. Even against the backdrop of the right to be heard, which is the first principle of law. Our law says that if you are given an opportunity to be heard and you don't take advantage of that, we can proceed without you. That is why when you take the summons, it says that the first page, it tells you that if you don't show up, we will proceed as though you were part of the process. So the process went on, and she was not available to give a version, and yet our law says that we can still proceed. We proceeded and convicted her, even while she was away from this country. Now, when she was out there, we called her convict, and it is properly so called. You understand? All sort of things were said by our brothers on the other side about this woman. But we took it because, you see, she's been convicted by a competent court of jurisdiction. Did you read anywhere that NDC had released a statement condemning her conviction? She wasn't heard, but I'm not saying it's wrong. You heard the premise I laid. It's lawful. If you are granted the opportunity to be heard and you refuse, the court will proceed without you. But it is also a fact that she didn't tell her story. It's a fact. I'm not saying something untoward happened. All sort of things were said. The woman remains a convict. We call her names. And she's in now. The government has ensured that she serves her sentence. Nobody must stop anywhere to say, no, we will not allow or agree, even though she's NDC. Because it was a competent court of jurisdiction that convicted her. And if we have issues, or her lawyers have issues, it is not the streets that will resolve the matter. You go to court, which her lawyers have done. That is how to build a country. So this whole issue of why? My brother Paul, of course, from where I sit, I see him as an ardent critique of this government. Who has arrested him?
Well, there's a story on that coming, so when you finish.
No, you can. I don't have any information that your liberties have been taken away from you because you criticized the government. But if you served a public office and there is an opportunity to account for your stewardship, you cannot blackmail anybody by the sheer cry that because I'm criticizing the government, I shouldn't be held accountable. Nobody will be blackmailed. But otherwise, if you are a private person and you've always been a private person, nobody, what will they, look, in fact, the provisions in our statute that are used for saying unsavory things against any person is not to charge a person for any offense other than the section 207 and 208, which I've always insisted that they remain in our books. I would say, because I'm a critic of MPP, I don't think anybody has ever heard me say anything unsavory about Dr. Bawumia. No. We can always criticize without necessarily going that tangent some people go.
Okay. Now,
and so
my next question to you will then help you to dovetail into the substance of the matter and to help us appreciate what you think about the judgment and why you think that the judgment is sound. So there were four key individuals in this matter. So you have Michael Jedu, AEC. You have one entry. There's something interesting. I need to get the full name. Kwame Entry, right? Who is one of the directors of Akoto Mining. And then you have Henry Okum as well. You have four people. How come the state only focused on prosecuting Wontumi and ensuring that Wontumi was jailed?
Okay, so thank you. Z, let me start off by saying that as far as I'm concerned, it was a very fair trial.
Tell me why.
A very, very fair trial. Now, this is it. It's true, yes. The charge sheet has Bernard Tribu Isiaku, Wontumi, Kwame Entry, who is at large, Wegane, he's gone. It's a fact that he's gone. And Akoto Mining, which is an artificial person. Yes, so that's what the charge sheet. And yes, Okum, is that the name?
Yes.
Yes, was also arrested. In fact, the whole case surrounds that gentleman. He's the one who was arrested together with his men. And my brother Paul did justice to it. It's not unlawful. It happens. It's not unlawful at all. You see, this matter, before I even proceed, for anybody to suggest that it's a political matter, for me, I don't agree at all. And that is the problem we have as a country. Let's not do this. Fortunately, I have two journalists. Regardless, he is a panel member, but he says a journalist. Let's not always push everything to politics. This is what we do to this country, and people are so emboldened to do all kinds of things because they know they would be covered under the name of politics. Look,
point well made.
You see, the gentleman was arrested doing mining. That's a fact.
You mean Henry Okum?
Henry Okum. He explained when he was arrested that he was brought there by Chairman Owusu. In fact, when you read his testimony in court, he doesn't even know Akunta Mining. Only that he did a search and the thing was in the name of Akunta Mining. But Owusu has been his friend. So he spoke to Owusu and they had, in fact, he testified that he doesn't know any other person in Akunta Mining, whether what a shareholder, a director, apart from Owusu. And of course, he dealt with Owusu, and it was Owusu who brought him there. Now, when we got into, or when the state got into the matter, we realized that, yes, Owusu, when he was arrested, admitted that, yes, I took him. He didn't say he doesn't know him. He said, yes, he was there under my authority. But what he was there for, as far as I'm concerned, is not to mine. So at least a certain percentage of the story has been confirmed that you know him, you took him there. So we need to do further investigation. Then this man said, okay, I know per what has been shown to me that whatever I was doing was illegal. I concede. I'm sorry. But I'm ready to take advantage of the plea bargain. And so I forfeit A, B, C, D. And on top of it, of course, no prosecution. So I would want to volunteer information at the trial. Let me put it simple like that.
But doesn't that compromise him? The fact that he was guilty, he has admitted that he's guilty.
And he took advantage of our laws.
Plea bargain
Which is lawful.
Which is lawful. Do you naturally expect these gentlemen to say anything against the state?
He had even said whatever before this whole arrangement happened. The gentleman was arrested. He gave a caution statement. Check the date on the caution statement.
Okay.
In fact, that is even the basis for the trial.
Right.
Because the gentleman, he is the one. Look, if we wanted Owusu doesn't live at Samraboy.
Right.
So it is the state, the same galamsey issues we've always been, talking about. The state is all over, fishing for those who are doing illegal mining, and go to Samraboy and met this gentleman who is actually mining with our licenses. So it was the gentleman that brought in the name of Chairman Owusu. And at the time, there was nothing like plea bargain, there was nothing like prosecution. It basic. At the very minute, he said it was Owusu that brought me here. So whatever he may have said in court had been said even from day one.
He only repeated it.
Repeated it in court.
Okay.
So it's not as if at that moment.
I really would have loved to see the caution statement. Anyway, please.
No, but that's the truth. That's the truth, because in fact the judge dealt with all of that. The gentleman spoke and said that. In fact, that was the basis for bringing in Owusu. Who else? How would we have known that Owusu is anyway connected to? Because we are not going. The state is not into going for documents to check who has a site where. Because if you have a site and you're not going to mine, nobody will arrest you.
Right. So the gentleman said Owusu brought him there to do mining.
Yes, to do mining.
Okay.
So that is what happened. Okay. Now, you see, there are a lot of things that have been said, and I will deal with this matter by answering the questions, some of the questions that have been asked, the commentary that has been put out there. First and foremost, let's get this. I'll come to the assignment bit. But let us advert our minds to the charges that were proffered on the accused persons.
Right.
The charges never includes, please pay attention to this. The charges never includes this allegation of support services.
Yes.
It didn't include that.
Yes. I'm reading the statements of offenses.
Yes.
Count 1, count 2.
Yes.
It's up to 6.
And all has to do with mining.
Yes.
It never had anything to do with the support
services.
services,
Yes.
the reclamation.
Yes.
I'm saying this because, their lawyers went to court and they didn't raise anything. And you see, ask any lawyer, you tell you that if you have a constitutional issue, you raise it very early in a criminal trial. That is what the law says. But you see, they went through the trial, completed the trial. It was the closing address stage that his lawyers, in their closing address, brought in this issue of constitutional whatever that the court, held on, and then the matter be transferred to the Supreme Court for interpretation. That was when this whole thing happened. Now, I'm saying that it had nothing to do because what they were seeking an interpretation on has everything to do with the support service. Because they are saying that that part of the law in the Mining Act did not proffer a punishment to it, which is contrary to the constitutional provision of 19. This is their point. Okay. And so, because the law says that the offense must be defined and appropriate punishment also attached, it breached that particular provision of the constitution. And so the judge defers it. First and foremost, the charges were on mining. It had nothing to do with the support service. Right. So for me, the judge was even magnanimous in dealing with the matter. He could have left it because that wasn't what was before him. It was what to me that brought in that I asked him to reclaim and not to mine. Yes. The man was also arrested for mining. And you see, the judge did some good work, even with regards to the constitutional bit, that the matter be taken to the Supreme Court. Let me say emphatically that the current position of the law with regards holding on, because we are, your listeners may not be lawyers, I don't want to be legalist too much, that's why I'm struggling to. Holding on and taking the matter to the Supreme Court for interpretation is the decision. First, we have the Mekankan case. We have in fact, the latest is the Jachikwezin case. People make mention of Zaneto. I'm surprised. Beyond Zaneto, the Jachikwezin case came. And the Jachikwezin case, the court said that was true. I think one of the judges, I'll get it for you. In fact, he said that we have to be careful with this tendency of everything putting out there as though the Supreme Court should always have the opportunity of interpreting everything. That is not how they work. That is why ex parte Akosa is there to guide us, whether the matter should be interpreted at the Supreme Court or not, or be taken to the Supreme Court or not. And the court would have to determine, that the trial court would have to determine whether there is even a matter that the Supreme Court should interpret. It is for him. If you disagree with him, you go and appeal. But even more profound is the finding the judge got. And I agree with him 100%. The reason he declined, when there are two conflicting understanding, let's put it understanding of a particular provision, that is where you take it to the Supreme Court. But if you say that a punishment is not attached to a provision, you are questioning the Parliament's role in the way the law was couched. That is not interpretation. Do you understand? Okay. There are no conflicting, because you are saying, and I see where they are coming from, that the offense was stated, but a punishment was not attached to it, which, according to them, infringes on a constitutional provision of 19, Article 19. If you say so, then it means that you are asking for the law, whatever it is, you are questioning the way it was drafted. Okay. That is not a matter that the Constitution envisages that it be referred to the Supreme Court for interpretation. What are you interpreting? Do you understand? Okay. So the judge said, no, that is not what... You can always go to court for that, whatever that you think that... But in the course of the trial, what happened in the course, in fact, even with the written submission, we were done with the trial. But in the course of the trial, what came up in terms of conflicting meanings?
I get that. I
get
it. But Honorable, you see,
I want to do. There are a lot.
No, this is important, and I'm trying to get some more understanding of why you believe that interpretation that the attaché and his people wanted to seek at the Supreme Court, relative to whether there's a law on reclamation, which is the mining support.
No, there is, but it's attached punishment.
Good. Now, the reason why I'm asking a question on this is because, you see, Henry Oku says he was asked by Chairman Wontumi to go and mine, right?
Yes.
Chairman Wontumi says, no. I asked him to go and do reclamation. Now, don't you think that, yes, I get the point you're making, but don't you think that there should have been some clarity which should have been sought, which is that, look, even if you ask him to do reclamation, what are the legal processes you should have gone through? And if you didn't, what are the consequences? Don't you think that we should have arrived at that? Even though, yes, if you read the statement of offenses would have been brought against them, there was nothing about reclamation.
No, but it's important.
But it came up.
No, but you see, it's important. And it is so significant that it's not part of the charges before the judge. It was your response. Then the judge said that even if that is the case,
okay, you
still didn't have. But none of them was convicted on that charge because they received it on that offense because the offense was not on the charge sheet.
But the reason why this was important to him is that if the claim that Wontumi had asked him to go and mine is held constant, I mean, if that is accepted, that definitely was going to land them in trouble.
Yes, but that's what happened.
So he needed the reclamation thing to be the main...
That is his case. That's his case. I get it. But that was his case. But yes, because of course.
Because mine is
you see, I know.
So
you see,
so he
yes, to bring this in. And the judge, that's why I think the judge was so meticulous. He stood on course. Because he would not, of course, he dealt with that aspect. That even if that is your claim, you still didn't even have the authority to do so.
Okay.
But then I'll still stick to it. So you understand. Now, let me also say this. Look. My brother Paul mentioned according to him, some questions people have been asking, whether the burden of proof was shifted. Look, it is law. And I can give a lot of decided cases. The burden does not stop with the prosecution. When it shifts. And he mentioned shifts.
Okay.
When the prosecution...
It was actually based on an article he read.
Well, no, but I have. When you look at the law, I mean, this is the evidence decree I have here.
No, I get the point. I'm just saying that he only raised it based on an article somebody had.
No problem. Yes. So I'll deal with it. No problem. So I have the evidence decree here, and it talks about the burden of proof. 15, 16, they all deal with. I mean, the burden of persuasion. In particular cases, he said, unless and until it is shifted. Unless and until it is shifted. So it tells you that at some point it shifts.
Okay.
When there is a claim on you, the state puts out, there was a claim that there was mining.
Right.
In fact, nobody has disputed that there was mining. Who did the mining and who ordered it is what is in dispute.
This is interesting. When Chairman Wontumi, so sorry, and I need to play the
no.
Are you saying that when Chairman Wontumi was asked whether he had asked Henry Okum, who then subsequently employed Michael Jidu to do the thing, you mean when Chairman Wontumi was asked whether he had asked them to mine and whether the claim that they had made was true or not, you mean Chairman Wontumi said nothing?
No, Chairman Wontumi said that he actually asked him
to reclaim.
He sent him
not to mine.
Not to mine.
Okay.
But to reclaim. I'll come to those fine details.
Yes.
Please bear with
because
me.
Of the shift of the
but the shift here is that there was a claim. In fact, the state has been able to make a case that there's been some mining, whatever.
Yes.
I mean, illegal mining. Indeed, this happened. And the person who was doing the mining actually considered that I did mining, but on the authority of this person. At least the state has brought up somebody. And Wontumi is saying that I know him. But what he went there to, of course, I mean, no judge expects somebody who has pleaded not guilty to say that I asked him to mine.
Right.
I mean, we are not kids.
I get it.
Do you understand?
I get it.
But that is why I will even come to the circumstantial evidence aspect.
Okay.
Where I've heard lawyers and shocking lawyers say that it is not law. Really? Let me give decided cases of, look, virtually about 90% of criminal cases in this country are not just in this world, are resolved through circumstantial evidence. Okay. Because there are normally no direct pieces of evidence. Do you understand?
Okay.
So circumstantial evidence is law. We've said it. The Via versus Republic, the State versus Annan, the Logan versus Gyamfi versus the Republic, all of them. And the courts have always said that if there are no direct evidence, you have to resort to circumstantial. But the condition with circumstantial evidence is that it must lead to no other situation than the person who is involved being the one who perpetrated.
Must lead to one incontrovertible conclusion.
I don't want to.
But I want us to look at the shift off because
so
Paul
the shift is here.
Yes.
So he said unless and until it is shifted, the party claiming that the person is guilty of crime of wrongdoing has the burden of persuasion on that issue.
Okay.
Unless and until it is shifted, the party claiming that the person did not exercise a requisite degree of care has the burden of persuasion and all that. Essentially, what it's saying is that, yes, so the state comes in, it is for the state to prove the case, to at least make its case.
Yes.
When the state alleges and puts at least, we arrested someone, and the person is saying that I was there on your authority. You have also said that, yes, he was there on my authority. But the only problem is that I didn't ask him to do
at
least about 80% of what has been said, we both agree.
Okay.
Because you actually know him and he is there on your authority.
That's fine.
Now, then the burden shifts to you. If you go to court and you say that I have a right to remain silent and all that, whatever has been said or would be said, if you have to raise some doubts. That's why the burden, otherwise, they will not call upon you to also say what you know.
Okay.
That's why we say the doubts that will be raised should be resolved in your favor. You have to raise doubts. So it's your duty. So if for anybody to say that the state did not do much, it was the Wontumi that was asked to do ABCD. No, the state had a case to make. It did make the case. In fact, they had corroborators, more especially the gentleman who claimed he was there on the authority of Chairman Wontumi and was actually mining. He also said a lot of things. The procurement of heavy duty machines, which he said was done by with the support of Wontumi and all that. So that prima facie, there is a case. Come and raise the doubts. That's when the burden shifts to you to also raise whatever you have to raise. So it's not true that in the entirety of the trial, it is only the state that has. If you decide to do that, he was not under any obligation to speak. Then you should have kept quiet so that the judge would come to the conclusion he came to. Now, with the issue of circumstantial evidence, I've explained that it is lawful. I'll be surprised for anybody, except if anybody has a contrary, most of the decision. In fact, capital offenses like murder, a lot of time, it is the circumstantial evidence. Now, you see, it has also been said why we didn't prosecute the other gentleman, especially I've told you that he took advantage. Why? Wontumi also had the opportunity of taking advantage, just like the Exim case, to take advantage of this law. He didn't. So if somebody took advantage, and also the state, of course, needed information, and the gentleman was the one who gave the information that I am innocent from the beginning. I'm here because the gentleman brought me here. In fact, there is no vicarious liability in crime. That you say that somebody asked me to. So you are still guilty. And he saw it. He said, yes, I'm guilty. But the guilt, I want to cure it by taking advantage of the plea bargain. So it's not as if he went scot-free. Okay. It's not true. Let that point be made. Right. Now listen to this. You see,
and I want you to end on this point so that Paul can come in, so that you can have a conversation.
Yes.
You spoke almost 30 minutes.
Oh, I have.
Yes.
You see, there is this claim that Wontumi, because I have raised the issue that, hey, if you claim you didn't actually sanction what happened, and the judge made mention of it, the gentleman was asked during cross-examination, what's his name? Ogunga.
Yes, Henry Ogun.
And whether Wontumi ever visited the site, because if you ask somebody to do reclamation on your behalf, you should visit the site. Of course, Ghanaians who are not even lawyers can ask some questions. What was it Wontumi? He claimed he never mind there. So what was Wontumi's, his interest in reclaiming a site he didn't mind? He doesn't work with EPA. He's not a Minerals Commission officer. What was his interest? And how were they going to finance it? The gentleman said that I am not an agriculturist. I am a small-scale miner. So he never said, the gentleman didn't say that he was going there to plant coconuts. He was going there to mine. In any case, the judge asked questions that how are they going to finance it? Whose money? And the gentleman is a Father Christmas? No. The gentleman said no. But the claim has been made that he reported the matter when the mining was ongoing. There is nothing on record. Let me say this today to you. There is nothing on record to corroborate that claim. That Wontumi reported that there was galamseyers on them. I've heard this I don't know whether you've not heard it. Because we have raised
the regional coordinating council.
No, but the regional coordinating council, it was the former regional minister who came to testify.
Oshedakun.
He came to, is that the name? Yes. He came to testify. I do not know how many people would go to a regional minister to report a galamsey. We are not kids. This is a politician. If somebody, and you knew that it was Ogum you asked there, assuming you didn't know he was mining, you had a site, you claim you had a lease. The lease, the site is being mined. You never stepped foot there. Yet, you claim that you went to report that some people were mining. When you knew you had asked somebody to be there, if he's doing something you've not asked him to do or asked him to do, you go and report him to the police, the law enforcement officer. You were even in government. You were a powerful man. You go and bring a politician to say that I report. And the judge said, these are all afterthoughts. Yes, because if indeed a report was even made, the gentleman came and he didn't even have a sheet of paper of a complaint he had lodged with the police that somebody was perpetrating a crime. And so, for me, you know, and let me end with that, at least for now, that what we had Act 703 to be our mining laws.
Yes.
And the Section 99 actually spelled out what should happen to you if you engage in illegal mining. Okay. And the Section 99(1) talked about Section 99(2) that a person without a license granted by a minister undertakes a small-scale mining operation contrary to subsection 1. We didn't have anything beyond this.
Okay.
But in 2019, we realized that we are not getting the big fishes. Because this one, because there is no vicarious liability in crime, this one only catches up with those who, are holding the shovels and all that. So in 2019, under Akufo Addo, this 99 was repealed. Not repealed, was amended to include a B. So when I hear anybody say that Wuntumi was not arrested based on galamsey or he's not done galamsey, I don't know what they mean by that. He was captured under B, which is that if you act, you instigate, you command, you counsel, which hitherto was not part of our laws in 2006. In 2019, we brought in this. Command, counsels, procure, solicit, promote. In any way, you are as guilty as the person doing it. In fact, where we expect from a mining site, how many of these big men would you ever go and find in that pit there doing mining?
Okay.
So we should understand what galamsey is, except one who doesn't understand it. So if you say he was not, why? Were we expecting to see Wuntumi operate the excavator or to hold the shovels in doing the mining? Right. So he was captured under the same law. That amendment that was done in 2019. Right. It was not only it wasn't only the conviction or the sentence that was amended. We actually captured this particular provision in there. So it is not true that he was actually not convicted based on galamsey. It was actually galamsey, and he was found guilty of such. If he intends appealing, we don't have a problem. But in the meantime, that is the position of
I rather thought that because when you look at the when you read the judgment, it says that everything has been summed up, or has been compressed into two main charges or offenses. One, which is that I actually want to read it verbatim, but maybe whilst I'm looking at.
So whilst you are doing that, there is this issue of assignment, and I'm shocked at the argument that has been made about assignment. If you read the provision, the relevant provision in the Mining Act,
yes,
I think that should be 12. If you read that, 14, assignment of mineral rights.
Right.
A mineral right shall not in whole or in part be transferred. Now listen, shall not be transferred, assigned, mortgaged, or otherwise encumbered or dealt in a matter without the prior approval in writing of the minister. Okay. And this, according to our brothers, a strict assignment.
Yes.
And they want, or they have impressed upon us to go and look at the Lands Act. They claim assignment has been, because I don't know what definition they are referring to, but I've heard some lawyers from that side who said that we should go and read the Lands Act, and it defines assignment to be a document. The Lands Act, I have it here, 2019. There is nothing here.
Really?
That the definition is here. But let me read the definition to you and you will see. Okay. And I'll come to this particular provision. A lot has been said. I don't know where it came from. That's 281. That's the Land Act 2020, Act 1036. It defines assignment here.
Okay.
It says that's interpretation, 281. It says assignment means the transfer of the unexpired portion of a term. Or, so of a term, that's one. Or interest created by a lease.
Okay.
Where did he say it ought to be written?
Okay.
Where did he say it ought necessarily to be written?
Or documented.
And even with that, even if it had said it ought to be written here, it would still not have had any impact on the Mining Act because this is not a universal act. This is not a constitution.
Okay.
It doesn't have. This is a different act, Mining Act, separate from the Lands Act. So you can't go and import. Even here, it's not there. But even if it's here, you can't go and import to a different act because the processes in acquiring the said assignment is not the same. In any case, assignment is English, unless it is used in any law, legal statute, where it is the reason that when they use it in the statute, they define it.
Okay.
So, if you read the Minerals and Mining Act, it didn't define assignment here, never. Because the assignment used here is used loosely. That if you transfer, that's why it didn't just say assignment. So, it is not the Lands Act assignment they are referring to. In any case, the Lands Act didn't even define assignment to be a written document.
Okay.
So, I don't know where this thing is coming from, that because there is no assignment properly so and they refer to the Lands Act. I have it here. Let anybody come through and show me where it is.
All right. So, Paul, the charge sheet contains two main offenses: assignment of mineral rights without approval, and then purposely facilitating an unlicensed mining operation. After listening to everything he said, and hopefully after reading the judgment, what are your thoughts?
Well, I listened to him carefully.
All right.
I just like to draw back on the article.
Okay.
The point about the so-called burden shifting.
Yes, the burden shifting. Yes.
Yeah, and he makes a point about the burden shifting, and that the burden shifts sometimes. Yes.
Right.
The burden shifts sometimes, but there are perceived specific ways in which the burden shifts.
Okay.
And I just want to read from the article first before I give you the research on the English cases and how this whole burden shift comes in. First of all, in the article, the guy starts with the case of Republican Crensel. I don't know whether Honorable is aware of, but it's a judgment by Pega J, which he talks about circumstantial evidence and the extent to which you can use it, and how, as he said, circumstantial evidence must lead you only to one conclusion.
Okay.
This guy talks about, I'm just trying to get there. So he says here, it says, the burden shifting passage makes me even less comfortable. This, he said, is probably the most troubling part of the judgment for me.
Okay.
After discussing Wuntumi's reclamation explanation, the court notes that Henry rejected that version and then states as follows. So Wuntumi had a version and Henry rejects it, and the court reports that in the judgment. And it says as follows, quoting the judge, says that, having rejected the allegation, the burden rests on the first accused, which is Wuntumi, to lead evidence on the probabilities to show that PW2 had agreed to the alleged arrangement, unquote. So the Wuntumi says something about an arrangement they had, which has to do essentially with the planting of coconut trees. Yes. And the guy denies that. And this writer is quoting the judge at the point where the guy denies it. And the judge is saying that at that stage, the burden has shifted to Wuntumi to show that indeed they had that agreement. Perhaps he's looking for a paper, a document, or something like that. So the writer continues. The court then concludes that no such evidence was led. That Wuntumi did not lead any evidence to convince the court that that arrangement that the Okun was doubting was real. So they take the story that that arrangement Wuntumi is suggesting is not correct. They take Okun's rejection of it. He goes on. But surely, he says, that raises the fundamental question. Why should Wuntumi have to establish his explanation on probabilities? Was it not enough for his explanation to raise a reasonable doubt as to whether he authorized mining, leaving the ultimate burden on the prosecution to displace that reasonable possibility beyond reasonable doubt. He continues, count 4, he says, troubles me even more. For purposeful facilitation, the court itself identifies an essential ingredient as presence of purpose, that the accused person abetted the contravention purposely for the breaching of the law. So the accused person, Wontumi, abetted the mining, and he abetted, so he supported the mining, let me say. He supported the mining, and he encouraged the mining, or he perhaps even directed it. And he did all that because he, Wontumi, was breaching the law. So let me go on. Yet, the writer says, much of what is subsequently relied upon to establish that purpose sounds to me at least closer to negligence or perhaps a failure to exercise proper oversight. He did not, this is the case against Wontumi, he did not verify Henry Okum's competence. That came up in the court. He did not verify it. Because they asked him that, is Henry Okum competent to plant coconut trees? He says, I don't know. Okay, so he did not verify it. 2, Wontumi failed to supervise, and Honorable said that he didn't show up there. The court also found that. 3, he never visited the sites. Okay, that's also on the court's record. And then illegal mining was prevalent. It is also based on Okum's testimony. There was illegal mining there. And then the last one is that he knew, or that he ought to have known, that is Wontumi, knew that mining was going on over there, illegal mining was going on over there, or that he ought to have known. The writer continues. He says, but ought to have known is materially different from purposely facilitating.
Yeah.
That's what he says. And that is the critical part of the judgment that he's criticizing. That somebody ought to have known something. It's not the same as he purposely facilitated it for the purpose of a criminal conviction, which has to be established at a certain high standard of proof. He goes on. If Parliament had criminalized purposeful facilitation, I struggle with establishing that mental element beyond reasonable doubt, substantially by reference to what the accused ought to have known, ought to have done, or ought to have known, rather than what the prosecution proved that he knew and intended. So he's talking about the criminal process and what the work of the prosecution is. Wontumi ought to have known should not be sufficient to convict him. The prosecution must, he says, show that he actually knew and that he intended it. So, for instance, Okun calls him and says that, Chairman, today we got X number of gold, or I'm sending it to you. He receives it. And then he tells him that, look, tomorrow bring me more. This your 1 kilogram is too small. Tomorrow bring me more. You have something like that. Then it means Wontumi actually knew, right, and that he also intended it. And that was absent from the process. He goes on to say, so I come back to the fundamental criminal law question. Was the accused required to prove, even on probabilities, that his explanation was true? Or was it sufficient for that explanation merely to raise a reasonable doubt, which the prosecution had to then displace beyond reasonable doubt? What he's saying is that Wontumi's confessions in the court, without the actual, and this ought to have known, should have then gotten the court to put the burden on the prosecution that what Wontumi has said raises doubt, and that's all Wontumi needed to do, to raise doubt. And once doubt was raised, then the prosecution must come in very strong, beyond reasonable doubt, and show Wontumi that you and Chiboisiako, you did this and this and this and this on that day. It's not about you ought to have known. It's not about that you were aware. You actually knew. You intended it, and that's where the abatement is then substantiated. He goes on to say that if I'm reading the judgment correctly, this seems to me to raise rather significant questions about the application of circumstantial evidence, the burden of proof, the mens rea required for purposeful facilitation in criminal proceedings. A person cannot be convicted of a criminal offense, unless it is established beyond reasonable doubt that he had a mental element to perform it, that he intended it, and that has to be proven. If you come to the other part of the burden of proof, you will see here that there's in England, there's a case of Wilmington and DPP, as you can Google it. And it's affirmed that the burden rests with the prosecution to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. The burden, however, shifts to the defendant, the accused person, when the accused raises statutory defense. So there are specific ways codified in England and applied by the common law where the burden shifts. Yes, it does, but it shifts on specific purposes. It doesn't shift on other parts of the thing. Now, these are the purposes. For instance, the accused pleads insanity. Like, oh, I'm insane. You, the accused person, you say you are insane. You have to bring a document. Or your lawyers must supply something, a test from the psychiatric hospital, to show that you are insane. You cannot just come to the court and plead, because you are pleading a defense. For instance, you are pleading immunity. You say that you are immune from the process. You are a diplomat, blah, blah, blah. You're immune from the process. You have to show it. Now it goes on. In the absence of a statutory defense, the burden rests on the prosecution to prove beyond reasonable doubt. Also, if one claims insanity, one must prove it in a certain way that the English courts define it. Okay, so it says also if the offense involves possession of like a gun, one must prove that he had lawful authority to possess the gun or other thing that he did not, or that he did not know the value. So if you are, police come and I'm holding a gun, you are holding a gun. There's video evidence, there's everything. That's at that stage. The burden is on me to show that I'm able to hold a gun. In fact, if you look at the offense for drug trafficking in Ghana, if you look at the Criminal Offences Act, you will see that it says that when people are arrested, what they ask them is that, show that you had the Ministry of Health permission to import, because you can have the Ministry of Health. So if the thing is found with you, the burden is now on you. You can't say that cocaine has been found on you in the airport and that the prosecution should prove beyond reasonable doubt. You have to show that you had, because the circumstance under which you can hold cocaine in Ghana is that you had the Ministry of Health's permission to import for hospitals. So if you are holding cocaine, that should be the only way in which you can hold cocaine properly. But if they find that you don't have it, then you have to show. So the shifting of the burden is not a wholesale shifting of the burden, or it is not that the burden shifts at the behest of the courts and the judge or the prosecution. No, the burden shifts in specific instances. The question is, as the writer said, in this process where the burden was shifted on Wontumi, to show that what he was saying was correct, that is the issue that is being raised. He ought not to show as an accused person in the jurisprudence of the common law that what he is saying is correct. No, he only has to raise doubts in what the prosecution is saying. Then the prosecution must now come full throttle to show that 100% what we are saying as a prosecution is correct. And that is why the prosecution is given a lot of leeway. The prosecution is given the powers of arrest. The prosecution is given the powers of search. The prosecution is given the powers of collect your phone, collect your this, collect your that, so that it will help them gather their evidence, because it's not very simple. You can't go to the court and use what is in people's thoughts, imaginations to prosecute. You must be real in prosecuting and to deliver it beyond reasonable doubt. The concern of some of these lawyers is that that was not really done as far as this case is concerned. That really is a conversation.
Okay. But Paul, just a number of questions. And we're still talking about the shift of burden of proof. Now, in having this conversation, we ought to situate in this right context. One, at least we can all agree that Wontumi says, I know him. That's it. There is no debate about it. It's I know the guy. Right? That's number one. Number two, but it says, I asked him to go and undertake a reclamation exercise.
I ordered him to be there.
Right? Now, the second thing is that Wontumi is not able to prove to the court that the guy actually has the expertise or the professional expertise to undertake a reclamation exercise. He's not able to prove that. But he says, I asked him to go and reclamation. He's not able to even prove to the court that, yes, this is the document that shows that I asked him to go and do reclamation. But never mind. He says, ask him to go and do reclamation. That is number two. Number three, how do you ask somebody to go and do a reclamation exercise and not give the person a funnel, a dime, to go and do the job? When you and I know, I mean, we may not be experts in mining, but at least as casual readers and observers of what happens in the mining industry, we know that mining, it is very, very expensive to do a reclamation exercise. You give the guy the job, you don't give him a penny, right? And now the courts then ask you, how were you expecting the guy to fund the thing? There's no answer. The guy says, oh, I have the answer. In fact, I told him that I will go and mine and use the process of the mine to finance the reclamation exercise. Now, when all of these things come up in court, how then does it put Wontumi in the position to sort of cast any doubt in what the gentleman is saying? Do you get the point I'm trying to make?
Yes, I get it.
So if this issues that came up in court, don't you think that would have put Wontumi in a difficult position to say that, look, what the gentleman is saying is not true, and that take what I am saying,
As against if one, he has said, I don't know him, then that's the burden they would then shift on Henry and Michael J. to say, oh, I know him, then they would have to prove. Two, if he has said, I didn't tell him to go and do anything on my land, so I don't know what he was even doing there. I agree with the point you made earlier about ought to have known, which comes to wisdom, discretion, and so on. It's not the same as I actually facilitated it. Point. It's a fair point. It's a very valid point, and you're absolutely right. And that's where the author of that article is coming from. But back to my question that one, if you can establish that you know him too, you can also establish that you asked him to go there, to your land, to go and do something there. What is in contention? With the bone of contention is what exactly did you ask him to? Then it becomes his word against that of Chairman Wuntu. Wuntu said, I asked him to go and reclaim. He says, no, he asked me to go and do mining. But back to the question I asked that, if you asked him to go and do the reclamation exercise, how was he able to, how were you expecting to do it when you have not even given a password for him to go and do that reclamation exercise? Do you get the point I'm trying to make?
I get it. The article answers it. But just to answer your point very briefly and basically, that is the whole essence of proof beyond reasonable doubt.
Right.
So the guy went on and they all agreed that he said I should do reclamation.
Yes.
Both of them agree on that. What they don't agree on is that they were also to do galamsey mining.
Yes.
They don't agree on
mining.
that.
Yes.
Okay. Now the guy's point, which is a common sense point, is that if you ask me to go and do something that costs money and you didn't give me money, it means he's inferring.
Yes,
we are all inferring.
Yes.
That's where we fail the standard of beyond reasonable doubt. You cannot infer.
Right.
No court should allow anyone to infer. So the set of facts. Go on my land, yes, go on. I know you. Go on my land, go on my land. Go and do reclamation. Yes, reclamation you said. But how was I going to pay?
Yes.
So it means because you didn't show me how to pay or you didn't give me money, you knew that I would do galamsey. This is how somebody's been convicted for 20 years. This is the story. Where is the beyond reasonable doubt? The beyond reasonable doubt is now an inference. Now listen to what the guy writes on this matter that you just raised. He said that, consider the circumstances. Henry Okun is a small-scale miner. Reclamation cost money. Wuntumi apparently did not pay him for it.
Yes.
Henry Okun mined and says he funded the reclamation from the mining proceeds.
Yes.
Okay. Wuntumi introduced him to an excavator supplier. He says that as well. Wuntumi did not investigate his reclamation credentials. That also is from the court. Wuntumi did not supervise the site. That also is from the court. And Wuntumi sought a RECSEC, that's the Asante Regional Security Council. He sought RECSEC assistance in relation to Henry Okun's operations. Okay. So he says, these are all facts that came out. That's the point you're making. He continues and says that.
But you heard about the RECSEC matter, where he says there's no documentary proof because this is a police matter.
No, the RECSEC is against Wuntumi. The RECSEC is against it. I don't know how you're saying it.
No.
The argument is being made that Wuntumi knew so much about Henry Okun's operations that he actually asked RECSEC
to intervene,
to go and help him. RECSEC is a security
No, understand. And the regional minister is the chairman of RECSEC.
No, but
yes,
there are two things that happen here. According to
but can I finish this one? Yeah.
One is there.
Yeah, the RECSEC matter. Okay.
So, but you can take the RECSEC out and all the points are valid. Let me go on. It says those facts make the prosecution's case plausible, perhaps even highly probable.
Okay.
But now listen to this. But do they make the alternative explanation unreasonable? Why is the alternative explanation? It is this. What about the alternative explanation? Wuntumi authorized reclamation. Henry Okun, being a minor and having obtained access to the concession, took advantage of that access and illegally mined for his own benefit without Wuntumi's authority. I do not think he's ended the Wuntumi scenario. I do not think the judgment convincingly demonstrates that this is incapable of being reasonably true. So this is where the beyond reasonable doubt is. So everything I said about Henry Okun, as he said, it makes the prosecution's case highly probable. But that has not ended the 100%. There is something else. And so you have this this situation of the guy is a miner. He gets opportunity to have access to the thing. Wuntumi says, go and mine, go and do reclamation. He looks at the situation and says that, okay, what kind of land do I have in Samaboy? You tell him the land. He already begins to assess what potential galamsey can be done. He doesn't voice it out, and they do that. He doesn't tell you, okay, you give me the reclamation, I'll do it. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. Bye-bye. Chairman doesn't say, I'll give you money. He doesn't ask chairman anything. In his mind, we are going to galamsey. He calls another person and says, Charlie, we have the thing. Let's go and do galamsey and do his reclamation for him and move on. Except the court was to demonstrate that Wontumi participated and benefited from those proceeds of the galamsey, because obviously there are proceeds of the galamsey that occurred that has stayed with the guy. He's profited from it. Yes. He probably didn't use all for the reclamation. The fact of the matter is that reclamation happened. And the fact of the matter is that galamsey also happened. The fact of the matter is that Wontumi never stepped there. The fact of the matter is that Henry Oku says, I performed the galamsey, but I did it because Wontumi said I should do it. Did he give some of the proceeds to Wontumi? The court doesn't talk about that. The answer is actually no. So what was Wontumi's benefit to say that go on my land, do galamsey, and go and do reclamation?
So you're saying that the prosecution's job would have been you mean the evidence would have been weightier, because now we're talking substantial evidence. The evidence would have been weightier if the prosecution was able to establish with beyond reasonable doubt that Wontumi actually personally benefited from the proceeds of the galamsey. Paul, that's the point you're making.
Yes, yes.
He was able to establish that, look, we have evidence that when a guy mines a thing, he gives you the gold.
Yes.
But quite clearly, I think that, what we don't know is whether that aspect was actually investigated. But back to the issue I raised, and we have to take a break and come back. Paul, there's also an element of this so-called circumstantial evidence. Because I'm saying because I'm not a court. That's what the court said. The fact that the guy says, I'm a small-scale miner, doesn't that ring a bell? He didn't say I'm a support services renderer. He says I'm a small-scale miner. Doesn't that in itself destroy everything that Wontumi has said? That you engage somebody who is a small-scale miner.
Yes.
Of course. I don't know whether Wontumi feigned ignorance or he said, yes, I know he's a small-scale miner. I'm yet to recall.
Based on what has happened in the court, I think he knew that he was a small-scale miner.
So good. Now, if you know the guy is a small-scale miner, how do you engage a small-scale miner to do a reclamation project? That's my question to you. We need to take a break.
This question would have been relevant if the reclamation wasn't done. And Wontumi is alleging that I asked him to go and do reclamation. I didn't say he should do galamsey.
No.
And then there's no reclamation. No. This question would have been relevant. How do you pick a small-scale miner?
Paul.
You are lying. You didn't ask him to do reclamation.
Paul, what the guy did post facto, it's not really the matter in issue. The matter in issue for me is that, does this guy have the professional expertise and competence?
But that's settled in the question that they asked. That did you check whether he has expertise?
He said he checked.
Yes. But settled there.
How then?
And you are saying that automatically then suggests that the invitation for Okun to go onto the land was actually to do galamsey. That's the point.
That's the point I'm trying to make.
And I'm saying that point will be valid if no reclamation occurred. If there was no reclamation at all, then that point will be valid. And Wontumi comes and says, no, I asked him to go and do reclamation. You go to the land, there's no reclamation. And then it's only galamsey.
It's only galamsey.
The guy is a galamseyer.
Okay.
You told him to go on your land.
Okay.
Then you are telling the court that you asked him to do reclamation. Where is the reclamation? But the fact that the reclamation happened, that changes the whole thing. The standard of proof is very important.
The other issue is this, that
no matter how many noises are made, the law is the law.
SSO, and the law is the law is the law.
Thanks for watching. Like and share the video. You can also drop your comment. Please don't forget to subscribe. Click on the bell to turn on the notification.